Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, presented by Superbook Sports. Taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
Good morning, Broncos country. I know we are all frustrated, but we've got answers. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into Coffee Break. Merilatt and Andrew Mason going to be joining us here shortly. You guys, I understand we are so frustrated, and there are answers about Vance Joseph's future with the Denver Broncos, as Shawn Payton just spoke with the media a little while ago. Let's get into what we're going to be talking about on the show today. Of course, the future of Vance Joseph is a big one. Worst game in Denver Broncos history. Dolphins don't go for history. That's another huge thing we need to get into. Buffs lose their first game. Also, we have to talk about the NFL power couple and Super Bowl halftime show. Two of those things are very exciting. A lot of things are really frustrating in there. Let's get into it. First of all, Vance Joseph. Everybody is saying fire Vance Joseph. I see it in the comments already. Hold on one second. Fire George Payton and VJ today. Trade as many players as you can, and let's just start the rebuild. Everybody, I understand we are frustrated. It is time for a rebuild. I'm 100% with you. I think yesterday was kind of the final nail in the coffin of, all right, let this season be done. You're going to move on from Russell Wilson. You're going to hope to get a rookie QB. You're going to hope, but they have so many other problems too. And one of them was effort too. That was, I think, one of the most crazy things for me yesterday is watching veteran players, which I'm going to name one in particular, who absolutely embarrassed the Broncos yesterday. And I hope he knows that. Reading more comments. Give the defensive coordinator job to Rex Ryan. Lots of people are saying this. I was also kind of on this bandwagon until I talked to Cecil Lammey last night. And he said Rex Ryan is kind of known for being lazy, essentially. One of those guys that's not always in the office. You know, when they hired their new head coach up there, it was very much like, oh, you're here at like 6 a.m. That was not the thing. So I don't know if that's the best culture to bring back to this Denver Broncos team. I know Shawn Payton was furious at Vance Joseph yesterday, as many saw on the sidelines. Fire VJ, fire George Payton. Let's see, 126 points in 3 game, people. VJ needs to go. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news to everybody, but VJ is not going anywhere. Shawn Payton giving this comment this morning saying, on whether there would be firings or moves made, no. And that wouldn't be something I'd share on a conference call. So in case you were unaware, Shawn Payton essentially does a call every single Monday after the game and talks about the game. And we know yesterday he was super frustrated, but there will be no firing of Vance Joseph. Let us know how you feel in the comments, because I see somebody who's coming in, and I have a feeling that he's going to be extra frustrated by what's going on, as we will bring in Merilatt to hang out with us for just a little bit, you guys. I know you guys are frustrated. I'm frustrated too. Merilatt is going to be frustrated, and I know he's also frustrated at some players too. Good morning. How are you?
Morning. I'm good, all things considered.
I was going to say, you have a smile on your face.
It was a tough weekend. I mean, my two teams got outscored 112-26. I did not think Saturday would be the lesser of the two blowouts, but it turned out to be. So a rough weekend, but at some point, Rachel, all you can do is smile about it.
Listen, I'm going to talk to you about your Buffs here in a little bit, because as a Ram, I just need to say a little bit of it. I told you so for everybody that's coming at me being like, oh yeah, woohoo. We had a group text conversation, Merilatt and I, that we can get into, but let's talk about the Broncos, because everyone's like super pissed off Vance Joseph not being let go. This is a perfect week to let go of Vance Joseph.
Correct.
You're playing another terrible team this week. It literally could be a coin flip of who's going to win. And this is the time to move on from your defensive coordinator, to be able to bring in somebody, to be able to rebuild the defense. But you have time. You have these 2 weeks right now.
Yeah, to me, it's, if you're not going to fire Vance Joseph right now, I don't know when you would ever do it, right? I mean, you gave up the second most points in NFL history with 70. The second most yards in NFL history with 726. Like, those are fireable offenses.
Yeah.
Is it going to fix everything? No, of course not. But at some point, you have to send a message that this isn't good enough. This isn't how we do things. And if you're going to play like that, there are going to be consequences, and people are going to get cut. People are going to get fired. People are going to get benched. That's what it needs to be. Hiring VJ was a mistake from the get-go, right?
You have the receipts on that, don't you?
Those of us who said it got called out. And, my point at the time was nobody in the last 4 years has said, we need VJ. And then when they hire him, it's like, oh, yeah, well, that's just great. He's going to be a good head coach down the road and all the rest of the stuff. the reality is they were delayed in hiring a defensive coordinator because Greg Penner was busy playing in the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. So they didn't get to announce Shawn Payton on time. And then Shawn Payton has to go down and do his Super Bowl stuff. And then after that, all of a sudden, the likes of Steve Wilkes, the defensive coordinator in San Francisco, he's off the market. So you're left with VJ and Rex Ryan. And we all remember the process. It was a bunch of like, really? This is the list? So they kind of settled for the best that they could get. And we saw it yesterday. But look, you can blame the coaches all you want. And they deserve plenty of the credit. But my column today at denversports.com is this team has too many dogs, D-O-G-S, instead of dogs, D-A-W-G-S.
Agreed.
And number one on that list is Randy Gregory. He played a ton of snaps. He made $1 million yesterday.
I wish I made $1 million.
$1 million yesterday. 0 stats other than he jumped off sides. No tackles, no assists, no passes defense, no sacks, nothing. Didn't do anything.
Wow.
And to me, he is the epitome of being a dog because he's just a guy that looks like he's collecting a paycheck. Who are the players on this defense that have that pride, right? So, look, I'm not condoning dirty play by any means, but if you'd have had Aqib Talib and TJ Ward out there, at some point they're going to take matters into their own hands of they're not scoring another touchdown on us, right? I'll get them down by any means necessary, and that's more of a mentality than hey, I want people out there committing personal fouls. And I remember TJ Ward having a tackle on a long play by the Chiefs when the Broncos were getting blown out by Mahomes and company here. And he took the receiver down by the face mask. It's like, that's a dirty play. And I don't condone that. But it also was the guy that's like, nope, you're not getting in again. The Broncos don't have anybody on that defense that's that way. There's just no pride. It's just, guys jogging around. And, there's so many problems with this team. That's part of it. The other play that to me is kind of the epitome of yesterday is Tua's first incompletion. Damari Mathis doesn't even really make a play on it. It's just a little bit behind the receiver. He gets up and he's wagging his finger. Tua's 16 of 16 at this point. Like,
what are we doing?
Like you're talking trash when you hadn't stopped him up until then. That's just so symbolic of what's wrong with this team, what's wrong with this defense. They just don't get it. They don't get it, and I don't know how you change that without completely changing the personnel. Too many guys on this team that have been around and been a part of the losing, they all need to go. They all need to go.
Kareem Jackson, if you haven't seen the clip, it's going viral on Twitter right now, and it's essentially one of the touchdowns that Miami had, I think in the third quarter, maybe even the fourth, and you see the running back, and he hardly moves. It's literally like he maybe moves and it is wide open. Like Kareem Jackson could probably go and stop him on the 1, maybe the 2. And he's just practically standing there, like slightly moving around. But it's like, what are you doing? You're the most veteran player on this team almost at this point. Like, what are you doing?
Well, Kareem Jackson's a guy they've tried to move on from for multiple off seasons. And they keep bringing him back for whatever reason. Last year, the Jacksonville game in London stands out. He got beat badly on a couple of touchdowns. He's just not the player he used to be. And again, a guy who's been a part of all the losing, right? So week 1, they're down 17-16. They're about to get the Raiders off the field, get the ball back, and get a shot to win it. He hits Jacoby Myers on a 3rd and 12, 3 yards short of the first down.
Boom,
personal foul, automatic first down. Game that wasn't the end of it, but essentially. Last week, they're up 21-3, 4th and goal. Not only does he allow the touchdown, but then he hits the receiver late.
Boom,
and
flag.
Gets kicked out of the game. You got Turner Yell that's in on the 2-point conversion. He doesn't make the tackle. The Commanders get that. Now it's 21-11, and things start going down the wrong side of the hill. And then yesterday, he just making business decisions like that. That is a guy. And they have so many issues at safety, so many injuries, so many issues. But you have to send a message. Kareem Jackson would never play another game in a Broncos uniform if I was Shawn Payton. 3 weeks, 3 disastrous plays. That's one that doesn't really hurt you all that much if you send that message. Could you pick up a safety off the street that could come in and stand and watch the Dolphins score touchdowns? My guess is you could.
It was just overall super embarrassing. But here's the other part for me with this whole Vance Joseph thing with Shawn Payton not firing him or the Walton Penner group not firing him. You took too long last year to fire Nathaniel Hackett. Think about this. If there wasn't so much drama with Nathaniel Hackett and everything that happened last year, maybe Ejiro Evero would have stayed. And of course, this is playing like the what if game because they were friends. But it took so long and so much drama happened that maybe Ejiro Evero would have stayed because he would have had a longer shot at the coaching job, right?
Maybe.
Now we're seeing if this is the perfect time to move on from Vance Joseph, yet they're not going to do anything again. I feel like they're just too consumed with we don't want to make any rash decisions. Rash decisions would have been firing him after week 2. I get that. After having a 70 burger dropped on you, what does that come from?
Yeah, it's not a rash decision when you have a historically bad performance.
Yes.
It's just not. And yeah, you don't want to be the team that continually fires coaches.
No.
I get that to some extent, but the Broncos have had so many bad coaching hires, and this was in Cecil's column today at NumberSports.com, so I'm paraphrasing his. I don't want to steal it. But they've had so many bad coaching hires, they're now making the same mistake a second time.
Yes.
VJ was a bad hire as head coach. They chose him over Kyle Shanahan. Now they hired him as the DC. They're repeating their mistakes, and to not admit it, I think is just it's just a mistake. And look, Israel Evero's defense after the trade deadline last year, after the bye, Bradley Chubb's not a great player. I mean, I think he had 1 tackle yesterday for the Dolphins, but that defense was worse after that trade. He did work well in conjunction with Draymond Jones, and they were not very good in the second half of last season. We're seeing a continuation of that, only much, much worse with VJ. VJ was, to some extent, set up to fail by the standpoint of he inherited a defense that was trending down.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks they were way up here, but he's taken them to a whole nother level of just ineptitude.
They were a middle of the pack defense last year, where it was and if they were a middle of the pack defense with a now better Russell Wilson and offense honestly didn't have a bad game. I kind of feel bad for Cortland Sutton because of his fumble. Yeah. It kind of took the shine away from how good of a day he did have, but this team wouldn't be terrible. But the fact that their defense has absolutely just gone down the drain, think about it. They might have they could be 2-1. I don't think they would have beat Miami yesterday, but.
No, but I mean, offensively, the 2 fumbles were killers.
Yes.
The tipped ball interception was a killer. 2 touchdowns called back because of penalty that you had to settle for field goals were killers.
Yep.
But ultimately, it wouldn't have made a difference. I mean, I think they did play fine on offense, good enough to win most games. They only scored 13 offensive points, so that sounds funny. But it just turned into such a debacle that, almost the entire second half you have to throw out. They were fine. They moved the football. They shot themselves in the foot again. Special teams wise, they scored. Yeah. Right? Marvin Mims had a kick return.
Hey, maybe we should use more Marvin Mims. I don't know.
There's a thought.
Wow.
So they were actually okay in 2 of the 3 phases. They were just that bad defensively, historically bad, that none of it really mattered. But yeah, if you had last year's defense with this year's offense, this is a team that you're right. It's probably 2-1. Yeah. I don't even think it's probable. I think they are 2-1.
Agreed.
And I think they lose yesterday in a game where we're sitting here saying, yeah, they lost 31-28, but boy, they showed some signs. That's a tough place to play. That's a Miami team that's going far.
Yeah.
And we'd be talking about moral victories, and I'd be saying I hate moral victories and all the rest of that instead of the conversation we're having.
Real quick, can we talk about moral victories?
Sure.
Last week, James Merilatt throws in our group chat, oh, how are you enjoying your moral victory, Rachel? Because the CSU Rams had a close one against the CU Buffs. And I said,
I actually asked if the moral victory parade was going down Prospect or Harmony.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I do apologize. And I essentially said, CSU laid out a blueprint for teams to beat CU.
Yep.
Which they kind of did because they got stomped. So first of all, just as a friend to friend, how you feeling after that game?
Fine. I never said they were going to go undefeated.
Okay.
I said they were going to make a bowl game at the beginning of the year. Everybody thought I was crazy.
Still
Their
believe
over
that?
under. Here's a little tip for you. Their over under on wins is still 5.5. They're at 3. They're not going to go 2-6 the rest of the way.
Are you sure?
They're just not. I mean, they got
Stanford, a blueprint now.
They got Arizona. They got some teams that they'll beat. Look, Oregon's a really good team. Oregon could very well be in the playoff.
Oh, for sure.
So you're going up there. It was a buzzsaw. CU's gotten all the hype, so the crowd was all fired up. Oregon was certainly fired up, and the Buffs were terrible. As bad as the Broncos were defensively, CU might have been that bad offensively.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get out of their own way and couldn't keep themselves in the game. But yeah, you know what? It's a team that probably needed a little humble pie. And I think if you lose 42-35, you don't get it. And I think that they clearly got it. So Saturday's going to be interesting with USC coming into town.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to find out. Were they kind of a fraud and a mirage?
Yep.
If you lose 42-6 again, you were. Or is it, hey, that's a little unfair to, bump them out of the top 25 because they went to Oregon and lost? I think they're a team that probably deserves to be in there, but we'll find out on Saturday.
Oh, you still think they deserve to be in the top 25?
Yeah, they're 3-1. They lost to a team that's a top 10
But you
team.
beat teams that are nobodies, and I'm saying that as a CSU Ram, I'm saying that. CCU wasn't the same team they were last year. I know everybody coming in for week 1. Not by any
means, but it's also a team that is coming off the national championship game, and they're at home. CU on Saturday looked like, I think we were worried they would look in that CCU game of beating themselves, dumb penalties, just look like an undisciplined team. And, not having Travis Hunter hurt, but you can't put it all on that. That can't be the reason he played that poorly. So we'll see. We'll see if Dion can rally the troops, right? There are two things that are difficult. That's what I tell my 6th grade team all the time.
Lots of people are calling you Coach Merilatt in the comments, so keep it going.
There are two things that you have to learn to deal with as an athlete, as a coach, in life, whatever, right? And part of it is, hey, what do you do when you get knocked down? Sometimes that's easier because you get it, you brush yourself off, and you got to go back to work. The Buffs are in that position now. The harder part is when things are going well, not to read your own press clippings and to remember that, hey, all that hard work is why things are going well, and to get complacent. The Buffs fell into that trap.
Yeah.
So now Coach Prime has the easy message of, hey, we just got knocked on our butt.
Yeah.
We got to get back to work. That's going to be simpler. And then, here's hoping they get another chance to learn how to deal with success, because they did not do a very good job of it the last 2 weeks.
Although I will say, the way Coach Prime handled that press conference after all the crap that Dan Lennings came out and said, he handled it so well and gave them just credit. That's the one thing about Coach Prime is it's hard to hate him, because he just seems like a normal dude who goes out there and he's like, yeah, we got our butts whooped, but shout out to them.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all you can say, right? And he did handle it well. I thought he handled the Matt Rule situation well. I thought he handled Jay Norvell well.
Everybody.
He, for whatever reason, he rubs people the wrong way. Some people. There are just some people that want to be haters.
Always.
And I get it. You're a CSU fan. There are a lot of Nebraska fans who live here. But it was a heck of a lot more fun the last 3 Mondays than it is this Monday, with kind of the bloom off the rose a little bit.
Agreed.
So, I'm a Buff. So admittedly, I was enjoying the magic carpet ride. But let's get 2 or 3 weeks down the road. Nobody's paying attention to college football in Colorado again. And then raise your hand if you're happy about that. I don't think anybody would honestly say that.
I can even say that as a CSU Ram. The group chat was a little hard after a couple 3 Mondays because we have lots of Buffs here. But I will say it's definitely a little disappointing this week. Going back to the Broncos game, Mike McDaniels chooses not to kick the field goal. And so many people, myself included, wanted to see him do it just because it was going to be the most points. And you're on the wrong side of history if you're a Denver Broncos fan. But actually, I almost find it a little more disrespectful that he didn't do it. He was like, you know what? We're just not going to do it just so we don't have that title, right? You're not a part of this game. Where instead he could have just been like, you know what? We've already put so many on. I mean, having your backup quarterback throw, how long was the one touchdown? 60 something yards.
It was pity. And as a player or as a coach, the last thing you want is pity.
Agreed.
Right? Hey, we got to stop you. You're in field goal range. Kick the field goal.
Yep.
The other part of it, and I would have kicked it. I would have kicked it. Maybe that says something about me.
I would have kicked it.
But I think that, in 20 years, the people that are part of that organization, if they win a Super Bowl this year, the Dolphins, it doesn't matter. That's what everybody's going to remember in 20 years. But more likely than not, they're not going to.
True.
And in 20 years, they're going to be telling their grandkids about, hey, I was a part of the team that scored 73 points against the Broncos. When you have a chance to make NFL history,
do it.
I think you owe it to your players, to your fan base, to do everything you can to do that.
Agreed.
Now, had he had called a timeout in order to do it, that would have been a bit much. But if it happens in the normal course of play, and a 4th down arriving when you're in field goal range and you haven't had to stop the clock with a timeout is the normal course of play, play it straight up.
Yep.
And playing it straight up would have been to kick the field goal. So, look, his post-game answer was classy. I just don't think it was necessary, and I think it was pity. And I think that's even worse than getting the record hung on you, is having somebody take pity on you.
I 100% agree, and I like the word pity that you're actually using. It's just, I don't know. If you have the chance to make history, just do it. Yeah. And it sucks to be the Denver Broncos, but then don't let them do it. Like we said, have some dogs, DAWG, on your team who's going to be like, absolutely not. Man, some days, though, you just miss TJ Ward, Aqib Talib, all of them.
Well, if the Broncos really wanted to stop it, all they had to do was come in and commit a personal foul there. It would have been an automatic first down for the Dolphins, and then they could have knelt on the ball.
True.
So, again, I'm not condoning dirty play, but if you really want to prevent the record, go do something to prevent the record.
True.
Go take a
There's
shot
lots of
at a
ways you can
lineman
cheat the
after the
system.
whistle, get the flag, automatic first down, they take a knee, and you get out of there. And it's just, never even crosses their mind.
Yeah.
Whether that's football IQ or just pride of like, I'm going to do anything I can to make sure this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Versus just sitting there and hoping Mike McDaniel just, wants to call off the dogs. It was a pathetic performance. It really was. I've been watching this team since 1979.
Yeah.
I was in the building for 59-14 against the Raiders, the Darren McFadden game. I was there 48-14 in 1994. I had my 15th birthday ruined on Halloween 1988 when Eric Dickerson ran for felt like 400 yards.
Yeah.
Yesterday was the worst. I was 55-10 Super Bowl against the Niners. I remember watching that. Yesterday was the worst Broncos performance I can remember in my lifetime. And again, I've been watching since 1979. So that's not recency bias. That's not hyperbolic. That's just a reality. It was pathetic.
Are you surprised by Shawn Payton? There's receipts on you coming out and saying too, Shawn, you better show up. Otherwise people are going to be pissed and they're going to hand it back to you.
Yeah.
So for him to have such a short press conference yesterday.
Yeah.
Are you kind of like, interesting.
Well, and I tried to tell everybody that when, nobody cares about the media. They don't, nor should they.
Oh, no.
But the way Shawn Payton kind of has handled the entire offseason, making life difficult on the media, it's like, man, if you don't win, people are going to pounce.
Yeah.
And they're pouncing. As they should
Yes,
when you're that bad. It's also, hey, if you're going to talk trash about Nathaniel Hackett, you better back it up.
Oh, boy, you better.
Your team right now is more poorly coached than the team that you said was the worst coached team in NFL history.
Yeah.
You're even worse. So I think that's a little karma coming back to bite him. And at the time, I was a Jim Harbaugh guy. I was a DeMeco Ryans guy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Shawn Payton was a little too much in love with Shawn Payton. And I thought, hey, a guy leaves, and very rarely does someone come back.
Yeah.
And it works very well, right? Jimmy Johnson went to the Dolphins, and it just wasn't quite the same. There's a reason why no NFL coach has ever won a Super Bowl with two teams. It's hard to kind of get it going again once that motivation is gone.
Yeah.
Shawn Payton in his 40s versus Shawn Payton now, it's just a little different.
Different ball game.
It just sort of feels there's too many people in this organization, whether it's coaching staff on the field, that it feels like they're there for the paycheck. And it feels like they're working banker's hours.
Interesting.
It just, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but you start to look for reasons, and boy, that at least is something that makes sense.
All right, James Merilatt, appreciate you as always.
Hey, how did the Rams do against Middle Tennessee State?
Hey, they won, baby.
Hey,
baby. Woo-hoo. You love to see it. Thank you, James Merilatt, everybody. And of course, if you haven't already seen, no firings will be made this week as we both bring in our very own Andrew Mason. Mace, how are you today?
I'm here. I'm still punching, still standing. So
usually you are one that is just like peppy and cheery, and I understand today is a rough day, especially because you were down there at the game. But I'm glad to see your face.
Yeah. Well, the other thing also is, I didn't leave as early as I wanted to, and I had a 4.5-hour drive back. Plus, I had a rental EV, so I had to stop and charge it, and so I trudged into my parents' house about 20 miles from Tampa at 4:05 in the morning. Now it's Eastern time, so if I keep myself on Mountain time, not so bad, but still, I'm a little. Yeah, there's not a lot of pep in my step today, and I haven't even rewatched the game yet, so that's going to be fun.
Well, listen, I appreciate you hopping on with us, of course, because when you're actually there, there's different emotions that come with a loss, right? Like, it's one thing to watch it on your TV, but when you are there and you are getting to witness it in person, I want to know, what was your biggest takeaway that you were kind of like, man, this is the Denver Broncos team that we have and are cheering for under Shawn Payton? What was that takeaway?
How poorly they defended the run. How many tackles they missed. But look at all the space Miami's running backs have to operate. The Broncos, they were getting beaten at the line. They were getting beaten at the second level. I mean, it's just like if they held a Dolphins runner to 4 yards, you felt like it was a victory for them. I mean, and yes, there were a couple of plays here and there, couple of TFLs and all that. But like
Yep.
One of the TFLs was on 4th and 1 where Mike McDaniel made a bad call. I mean, 4th and 1, if you're going to go for it there, I mean, they had inches to gain, maybe like 2 inches. Just call the tush push and go on to the next play, right? And then, of course, the Broncos are given that gift of a bad play call from Miami. And what do with that field position? They go backwards and punt. I mean,
Yep.
it was how physically overmatched they were against the Dolphins up front on the defensive side. I didn't think I was watching an NFL game, Rachel. I thought I was watching Alabama or some other SEC colossus going up against like the Citadel.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it felt like, where you had one side that was just physically overmatched.
Well, I had a bunch of people texting me after the Buffs loss, and they were like, so which one's going to be worse? Is it going to be the Broncos or the Buffs? And I was like, easily the Buffs. Like, we're talking about NFL teams out there. Boy, oh boy, was I wrong. And I probably owe some coffee bets after that one, if I'm being completely honest with you. It's really sad. And of course, the Broncos are being the butt end of jokes today, Mace. But I have this question for you on Shawn Payton, because so many people are saying it's disrespectful that he kept Russell Wilson out there for so long. Russ had a good game. I know he had the turnovers. I feel like it just kind of comes with the territory with Russell Wilson that we're going to see a couple, at least every game. Excuse me. But is it disrespectful to keep your starters out there for so long? Because it just seems like he was trying to prove a point. And I'm like, at this point, what point are you trying to prove? Because the point should be made to you that you should probably not come out here and talk too much, Shawn Payton.
I don't think it's disrespectful. I think it's taking a risk that maybe doesn't necessarily need to be taken, right? I mean, disrespectful. I mean, no, this is the NFL, right? You're getting whooped like that. I get the notion of saying, hey, you guys broke it, you guys fix it. But But here's the thing. I mean, you had Mike McGlinchey, dodging a bullet there in garbage time.
Yeah.
If you lose Mike McGlinchey, you got Cam Fleming, but that's something that could alter your offensive line. God forbid you lose Pat Surtain to an injury in that scenario, right? Can you imagine what it would be? So I don't think of it as in terms of being like the right thing to do, like as far as respect and all that. I simply think of it as, okay, in a game that is long since decided, why risk having some of your core players out there? And further, it would have been an opportunity to start learning some more about some of the younger players on your roster who hadn't gotten in there. Now, obviously, injuries have forced guys like De'Aaron Turner-Yell and Drew Sanders into action. But, why not give Jarrett Stidham a couple of possessions to just see him running the operation on offense? Not because you're going to put him in, but if Russell Wilson gets hurt, you may have to turn to him at some point. Why not give Jaleel McLaughlin, a rookie that you're learning about, some run there at the end of the game? That's kind of what that's kind of the way I view it.
100%. I cannot believe we've gone 28 minutes in this show, Mace, and we haven't talked about the fact that why was Pat Surtain not on Tyreek Hill for the entire game? I'm still confused by this idea. I'm not sure what they were thinking. You got the number 1 quarterback in the league, cornerback. Go for him. Put him on the probably number 1 wide receiver. Would you say Tyreek Hill?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna give an answer that I don't know if people are gonna like or you're gonna like.
Oh boy.
A reason why a lot of teams don't do that and say, okay, CB1 is going to tail wide receiver 1.
Wait, can I take a guess at this?
Go for it.
It's because their CB is actually going to get destroyed by the wide receiver and they don't want that to have a bad look?
No, it's not that.
Okay.
It's that right corner, left corner, nickel corner, in terms of the learning involved and what you're doing, they are regarded as 3 different positions. I mean, at tackle, for example, I remember being told one day about going from left tackle to right tackle. Like, okay, what's that like? And was said, okay, You go to the bathroom. When you wipe after the bathroom, what hand do you do it with? Said, left hand. Fine. When you wipe, do it with the other hand, right? Like
Yep.
you have to learn kind of a whole different, reaction process, etc. You're basically taking everything and flipping it, and not all, but a great majority of the teams have decided, okay, we're just going to go left corner, right corner, so that player doesn't have to learn two positions. Because if you move Pat Surtain around and he's tailing a receiver, all of a sudden everybody else has to learn multiple spots. That's
so.
why.
Does it have less to do with Pat Surtain and more to do with everybody else, especially because they're so depleted in the secondary?
I think so. I mean, you're down. You're already down your nickel cornerback in K1 Williams. He's saying Bessie filling in. Damari Mathis is still very much finding his way. Riley Moss got in uniform, but Riley's still learning the defense, right? I mean, he missed all of training camp. He's had 2 weeks to kind of settle in. It's going to take some time before he's ready for something beyond a special teams role at this point. So, there are all those factors involved. As John Fox would have said, and did say, in injury-plagued seasons, no one's coming to save us.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Any other useful information Shawn Payton gave this morning after maybe he had a little bit of a time to take in the loss yesterday?
Well, I'm going to write a little bit about this at denversports.com. I asked him a question because he always talks about the race to get better and, learn. So I asked him a question. Look, what have you kind of learned in this race over the last 3 weeks that you can apply going forward? And he said, the attention of detail, what we're doing at practice has to improve. We as coaches have to look closely at what we're asking them to do. Okay. Attention to detail is really interesting. And you wonder where the disconnect is in that. Is it he's got a coaching staff that has some old hands, but it has some younger coaches? Is there something kind of not clicking? I mean, basically, he's kind of he said the special teams unit played really well. And of course, the special teams unit, you've got an assistant head coach in Mike Westhoff, who is as terrific a special teams coach as there's ever been. Ben Katwaika is the coordinator. He's got a lot of experience. And then you have Chris Banjo, who's kind of the younger coach, who's, kind of, I wouldn't call him an intern, but he's kind of very much kind of learning from the two people around him. So you've got three coaches at three different stages, varying levels of experience, but that's the kind of thing that works. And so it kind of stands to reason special teams is the first unit of Shawn Payton's that has figured it out, because it's probably got kind of the clearest and crispest structure in terms of how they're doing things. But yeah, like you wonder, like, okay, some of these newer coaches that Shawn Payton hasn't worked with, is everything copacetic? Is everything clicking? And then saying we as coaches have to look closely at what we're asking them to do. And this is where you say, okay, what do you have? I mean, you're still learning about what you have talent and quality wise in terms of the roster. And do you have to dial things back to mask deficiencies? A lot of success in the NFL comes from being able to mask your deficiencies longer and better than other teams, to make sure that you're playing to your strengths, that game situations play to what you do best, setting yourself up for that, and then the areas in which you're lesser, those don't become as big of issues because you've managed to minimize that a little bit. And so I wonder what that's going to lead to schematically, tactically, how you use players. I mean, they did try something yesterday at the start when they went after being 3-4, they went 4-3 and had Drew Sanders out there. I would also say that Drew Sanders, in the course of his work yesterday, most extensive work to date, showed he has a long way to go as well. And that's another thing. If you're going to put a young player out there like Drew Sanders, you're going to have to live with the mistakes. He's going to miss some tackles. He's going to be in the wrong spot at times. He's a rookie. If you're throwing Riley Moss out there at some point, same thing. You're going to have to live with the mistakes. I mean, Damari Mathis, he's in his second year, but he became a starter last October. I mean, he lived with mistakes with him. That's just kind of part of it. And you see where they go, and then you make a decision as to whether, okay, do we keep going down the path with this player, or do we say, okay, his ceiling doesn't appear to be what we hoped it was going to be. Let's go another direction, try somebody else.
Oh, gosh. And that's how you start a rebuild right there, Andrew Mason. Real quick, because the show always goes by way too fast, I want to get your opinion on the NFL power couple that is now Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, +2 if you're excited about the Super Bowl halftime show that is Usher.
Okay. I'll say this for Travis Kelce. He decided to shoot his shot, right?
And it worked.
I mean, I'm not saying you do that. You always do it respectfully, and you have to go in with the confidence to accept a cordial rejection and then kind of not push after that. But hey, I mean, what can you say? He slid into her DMs, right? And now you've got Taylor Swift sitting in your box. I mean, how many hearts were breaking around the world seeing that sight yesterday?
I don't know, but I'm here for it. I think it's going to be the only thing that brings me a lot of joy for this NFL season. What about Usher? What are you thinking?
You know what? I think a solid choice. I'll say this. I think I mean, I would have looked at a band like the Killers, maybe, for example, because they're actually from Vegas. I think one thing the NFL hasn't always done is leaned into the places where they've had the Super Bowls. Like, I'll give you an example. Super Bowl 40 was in Detroit, and that was still at the moment where you could have done something kind of Motown past, and then some hip hop stars kind of connecting the tissue with the past. And instead, you got the Rolling Stones. Like, okay, what are you doing here, right?
Yeah.
So I would have, but I'm fine with Usher. No problem there. I'm
a big Usher girl, so I'm really excited about it. Some love in the club. We love Yeah by Usher. Lots of good stuff. Andrew Mason, as always, an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you, and get home back to Denver safe, all right?
All right. I'll see you later, Rachel.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here on Coffee Break, 10:30 tomorrow morning. We got plenty more to get into as we dissect the worst loss in Denver Broncos history. We'll see you guys then. Bye, everybody.